Welcome back. So, as we talked about yesterday, we talked about I being the person in your chair. Today, we're going to talk about you. So, you would be somebody other than the person in your chair. So, welcome back. This might seem like an odd way around where we're going here, but if we're building businesses for a lifetime, we really have to get a handle on who you are at the core and who you will be selling to. And along that path, we're going to take quite a few twists and turns and then tie it with a bow so that, as I mentioned, based on the economic, political, and overall environment for 2026, you are ready to run ahead. This is a life-changing opportunity. Not me, not offering it, but I mean in the world, the way that everything is lining up. And we're going to see a lot more of that in depth today. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is just go with me on this ride right now. And we're going to move over here to, let's see what we can get. Again, we're just going to start here as a starting point. Each day, we want to start with the news. Now, I was taught USA Today is one of the greatest newspapers to get. Now, I was taught that about 20 years ago, and the main reason was because of the vocabulary that they use. It was very middle school language with a lot of different topics, bold letters, small snippets, enough for people to get an idea of trends. Now, whether or not the information was verified or left-winging or right-winging is really something that we're tapping more in today. But the concept is, as you're building a business, it is core to understand what is going on out there. So although I look through numbers of sites, I'm just going to keep this consistent again today from yesterday and go through this one platform as a starting point. Now you see that above the fold, or when you sign on to their site, the main article or lesson that they want you to follow and pay attention to is this one right here. And we're seeing that in the news a lot right now. The Judeo-Christian conversation and attacks against one or another. And so here's yet another one, and the fate was decided. So we're going to continue to see this ramp up quite a bit on one side and another, the push and the pull. We're also seeing groups of lawmakers that have aligned with groups other than these core and have boosted and made billions. And yet all of a sudden, they're now under attack as well. So we're really seeing a change of the guard. We're going a different direction here. What everything was set up and what we were taught is now kind of being ripped away. Now, as we went into the lockdown periods, we were told that everything we knew to be true would be challenged, and all systems we had in place in the Western world would be brought down. Now, the United States is far from being on its knees, so I don't believe we hit our turnaround yet. We're just now at the point of civil disagreements, and we thought we would have those 4 years ago. So I believe we still have a ways to go, and yet I still maintain that by April of 2026, we're going to be in a new situation. And as long as you're ready to go, you can burst out and really create generational wealth for your family. But these key concepts are very, very important as we move forward. It looks like they refreshed, but it's still the same there. So again, yesterday we talked about I. And when we talked about I, we weren't talking about a narcissistic perspective of me here, although that narcissism will come up as we talk about tech companies in later episodes. But what we are talking about is I, meaning you, the person in your chair. And when I talk today, we move on to you. That would be the person other than the person in your chair. So this would be any other person other than the person in your chair. Now, I know this is a simple concept, but as I use the words I and you through the next period of time here, we're going to see that it really matters. And I'll let you know, I also have a degree in psychology. So this core relationship and functionality with the brain, but NLP and manipulation, head games and war games and strategy and 5D chess and all these directions really have a core right here in today's conversation. I'm not going to go down any rabbit holes today. That's not what we're going to do. We're just going to talk about things that you know inherently to be true, but maybe they've been pushed back quite a bit. Now, yesterday in the I conversation, I said that the number one identity or foundation that you have is really your word and your word to yourself. Now, if we go from a biblical perspective, we can look at 1 John. And that's a good reference for anybody who wants to step there. But in this conversation, we're really just sticking to I and your own brand, building your brand as somebody who has integrity, can get stuff done, who shows up, and that word matters. Now, as I mentioned, often through life, we realize that that relationship with ourself gets manipulated, and we're told that the relationship to somebody else or something else is more important. For instance, your employer. Maybe you have given your word that you're going to do something. You tell your employer that you need time off in 3 months, and then your employer decides that no, that's not going to happen, and so you back down on your word to yourself. We also know that we're right around the corner from New Year's resolutions. And at New Year's resolutions, we often see individuals who come up with these great plans to essentially change their life, improve their life, get rid of something they didn't want, pull in something that they do want. It used to be for the year. Now, some people hope to get through the day. What does that challenge of not following through on your word mean to you? So as we look at I versus you in relationships, we're really looking at a distinction of more than one person. This and come here. So we're looking at a distinction of more than one person is what we're doing. And this is really important because as we're indoctrinated through the education system and as we move forward, I do believe that college is a scam. And we've got a whole nother pathway to present to you in order to make sure you're educated, make sure you can check that box, but also make sure that you're not setting yourself up to fail for life. But let's come back to this. So education is key, but education has been manipulated to be an indoctrination system. Now, how do we know this? They're government run. Right? If you have your own system, let's say you're homeschooling or you've been homeschooled, then it's based on your family, maybe a community or church group. Those ideals come together. But when a child is dropped off for 30 to 35 hours a week with people that they don't know, that's a government run system. Now, the challenge is we've known for decades that this isn't the pathway that we want. And yet it wasn't until lockdowns when people walked in the room and saw and heard what was being taught that finally people started to question more openly. And we saw a mass exodus of kids being pulled out of public schools. Now, a lot of it was an easy choice. The public school was closed. Now, I recall I had a child at that time, a preteen, and we finally got him into a learning pod. Remember those? They bring a bunch of kids together that couldn't go into a school environment, and then they could at least study to have that social network. Now, they had to wear a mask. They had to be at their own individual desk. They had wiped down sanitation protocol, of which somehow we forgot all about. Have you gone to the grocery store? Nobody wipes down the cart anymore. But the day that they hired an actual teacher, so this was at a community recreation center, so it's city run, but the day that they decided to bump it up and hire a certified teacher, the entire program was shut down. Oh no, these children could gather together. They could mix their cooties. They could go out and play during the breaks. But the moment there was an opportunity for real education, shut down. So many didn't go back to schools. Many realized enough is enough. Sadly, now we're starting to see those families realize that it's very difficult to homeschool and balance work and everything else that goes into life. And so, out of ease of babysitting, children have been put back into these government schools. But what happened at the government schools? I'm going to go on this tangent real quickly because I believe it's very, very important. And then we're going to bring right back to the I and you specifically. But in these government schools, they tested the kids. As soon as the schools opened up again, they tested them. And the first test was actually not for illness. The first test was let's all unite and be together, and everybody is good, and the rainbow flag is the best. Now, why would that be the main topic and protocol? And how do we know this? Because they had unity days. That was a priority, bring everybody together in one room. What? We're all supposed to be separated in our own homes, and now we're all together in one, I think they call them multi-purpose rooms. Not outside, indoors. And then they do this rah, rah, rah. And then the very next day that the kids are in the classroom, they're given a test. And the test asks whether or not they identify other than they're perceived, if they identify other than what's on their birth certificate, if they've ever, and they pull this information out and they give it to a third party. Even the kindergartners got a version of this. That's the indoctrination. Now, the next step is they were doing swab testing. They decided they would implement that. I think every Wednesday is when they did it, this particular school. And we opted out. Don't touch my child. Don't put anything on my child. No medical attention to my child. Leave my child alone. And we had that drafted by an attorney and served to the teacher, the district, the nurse, the principal. We made sure everybody knew about this. Well, after a few weeks of this, somebody got fed up and somebody brought my son over into the line to be tested. And all I can say is this was a blessing. Somebody showed him an email from his father, not any text, just, oh, this is your father's email, correct? And my son says, yes. And they said, okay, well, your father wants you to be tested. They didn't say that, give him the email or the fax. And so he thought, being a very young child, that, oh, dad must have changed his mind. He knew that wasn't right. And he knew that we've had a lot of conversations about the manipulation and buying pizza and ice cream for the kids that are willing to go forward with their parents not there. And yet they tested him. Well, Mama Bear stood up so loud that they not only were no longer allowed tests in that district, I found out that they were actually injecting directly into the kids on the campuses and lying to the parents about it. So because of this one manipulation of one child and asking a few more questions, we got that whole program stopped in the entire district. So is this about educating a child to go out and build their own enterprise and to be a leader in society? No, this is about manipulation. Stand in line. You will be an employee ultimately, and make sure that you can behave so that you don't get kicked out or you don't lose your job. So this is a real significant I versus you. Now, the reason that this goes so far is typically, again, I is the person sitting in your chair and you is the person that's not sitting in your chair. Typically, we're taught to be nice to everybody, to turn the other cheek, to offer a hand when needed, just basic kindness in society. And yet we came to a point where we can't trust anybody. And as we talked about yesterday, can we even trust ourselves? We were given the gift of discernment. And yet we're told, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, with wisdom, you learn that there's patterns. Investigators use patterns in order to solve crimes or to solve investigations. Why can't you use patterns in order to shortcut a decision tree? So for instance, if you know that everybody wears a certain, let's say a certain shoe, everybody that you've ever met that wears this certain shoe has a specific outlook in life, and that outlook is either positive to you or negative to you. The next time you see somebody with that shoe, you shouldn't say, I don't judge a book by the cover. What you should say is, wait a minute, I've been down this pathway before. I've learned some lessons. Let me make decisions based on my lessons, which is judging a book by its cover. This is where discernment comes in. By keeping your thoughts clear and honoring your own word, you can start discerning the truth. And this is really where we're at with tech reality moving forward, is discerning your own truth. Tech is here to manipulate you. Tech is a version of you over there, again, not you, but the somebody other than that that's in your chair at an arm's length distance that's invisible, giving you propaganda, manipulating your choices, shaming you, highlighting you, rewarding you, punishing you. So with tech reality, we're really going to be examining a lot of those pathways, but we're going to be examining them in a way that protects you and also in a way that you can use yourself to build your own enterprise. Okay, so let me go back and share the screen again here and move on to the next section. And now that we've got this going here, so that's the I versus you. Now, what I wanted to do, again, this happens to be psychology. Many of us were forced to take it in the university, even if that wasn't our degree. And yet it didn't mean much, right? It was that class you had to just get through. Or the joke of who gets a psychology degree. Is that astrology or the whole extension of the manipulation of what this is? But if you don't know yourself, do you see how this is a problem? We're now out there building robots that mimic human beings. Understanding the thought process, the development process, everything about the human body is even more important now. From psychology to sociology and, of course, biology. And yet, how was it taught to you? Now, I don't know anything about simply psychology. I've just quickly pulled up a link here. But what I want to look at are social institutions. So here it says social institutions are the standardized patterns of behavior and organization in a society that fulfill basic social needs. Social institutions are established systems that regulate and guide behavior, often with the aim of promoting social stability or order. People are policies, right? The people you put in place are the ones who create the policies and allow enforcement or non-enforcement of policies that they don't believe in. We've ultimately, again, seen this over the last 4 or 5 years. So there's theory and example. They're on the screen here if you want to pause it. But what I want to get to is we were told that all systems were going to be reviewed and many would be broken apart. So what does that actually mean? Oh, yeah, let me look at this one. Social institutions have several key characteristics. They're enduring and stable. So they're meant to be not from one administration to another or one principle to another. They're supposed to be something long-term that everybody steps in and continues to push forward. The military-industrial complex, education systems, banking systems. Okay, number 2, they serve a purpose, ideally providing better chances for human survival and flourishing. Based on what? We understand that Capitalism is the pathway to freedom. Communism and socialism has been tried thousands of times on this planet. And other than the few elite that end up ultimately being removed, it is not successful. It's detrimental to humanity. 3, they have roles that need to be filled. So you're building a structure, essentially a pyramid structure, governing the behavior and expectations of sets of individuals within a given community. So there's a division conversation here. Everybody is in their own community, and they can have a little bit of slack in different directions, but the overall governing and behaviors via government indoctrination centers and schools, expectations, keeping people in line through prison systems, overtaxation, all of these are over the decisions of a given community, by which the community is taxed and must pay for. Number 5, rules that govern them are usually ingrained in the basic cultural values of a society. I'm with you. Our values are the same. You can trust me. This is helpful. Oh, you're wrong. This is what we're going to do to make nice with everybody. You're just being mean. These are all conversations that come out in order to get the individual in the community back in line. Each institution consists of a complex cluster of social norms. We've all agreed upon it. Well, did you agree upon it? They also serve general functions that include allocating resources. This is a taxation, and then control by giving the money back. Imagine if you just had control of your money and could make choices. Creating meaning, maintaining order. This Order and Control and Patriot Act are all in a line there. Growing society and its influence. The influence isn't for you as an influencer. The influence is government over the I and the groups of I's in community. Okay, so examples and functions. So family is a social institution. What does that mean? Education. Durkheim, education can be conceived as a socialization of the younger generation. It is a continuous effort to impose on the child's way of seeing, feeling, and acting when he could not have arrived at it spontaneously. And I'm going to pause here before we send to some of the others. So my son goes to a school where the people from another country have decided that they are superior. And as they have gotten into teaching roles, mind you, often with heavy accents and a very difficult understanding of English, they've decided that they are superior. So my son has been removed from the classroom many, many times. At one time, us parents were informed that they needed him out of the classroom, and the only way they could legally do it was to put him in special education. So I called him on it. I said, that's fine. Thank you for caring for my child. Go ahead. You have 30 days from now, per California law, to do X, Y, and Z testing to prove that that's where he needs to be. You'd be shocked. They refused to do any of the testing, and the conversation got dropped. My son has also been removed from a classroom. And because they got caught, he was told that he was going to have to leave the school altogether. But my child had not done anything wrong. And in fact, he'd been wise enough to document what was happening. Yet those teachers are still there. These teachers are guiding values that are not of our family, that are not of our teaching. And yet somehow in society, they have been given a preference And who's teaching your child? But we also know that under communism, in order to avoid a kinetic war, meaning bombs and physical attack, one of the best ways they've noted to do that is to change the mindset of the upcoming generations. And from one generation to another, slowly bring people's beliefs in another direction. So your beliefs are not your own. When you were born, you didn't come in with a set of beliefs. Your parents gave you beliefs. Your maybe if you went to a church gave you beliefs. Your community gave you beliefs. And one level, it's all propaganda. But inherently, we want to believe that those who shared with us their wisdom, the thought was they had something to share that would help us in life. But if you look around, just name 10 people you know. You can make a written list if you want, in your head if you want. Are they leading happy, fulfilled lives? Are they employing other people and adding to society? Whatever value system that you have that is important to you, are the people around you emanating that outcome, the result? If they're not, then you know that the people around you have been influencing you and have also been influenced by the same influences you are. And that's the pathway that you're going down. If that's where you want to be, fine, but you got to be honest with yourself and what beliefs are actually yours. So we've got family and education. We have, let's see here, did it share? Let me go back to the other screen here and get this one to share. Family and education. And then, of course, the one that many turn to tear it apart or to lift it up, leads to many arguments, is religion. Religion is a social institution that plays a significant role in society. It is an organized system of beliefs and practices designed to fill the human need for meaning and purpose. Man's search for meaning is real. This was Durkheim in 1915. We all at one point want to have purpose, and normally that purpose hits us somewhere in our late teens to about mid-20s, maybe even, probably mid to late 20s. We really need to know, are we going to take another step? Is this meaningful? And are we really on the path that we're predestined to be on? And many people won't use that word, but that's kind of programmed in society as a checking point. And that's often when people are feeling lost or have lost something, then they start to get melancholy and look at that. And here we have Ogburn saying religion is an attitude towards superhuman powers. Well, I'm not going to interpret that. You can interpret that what you want. But Durkheim says religion is a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. That is to say, things set apart and forgiven. Who's good? Who's bad? Who's in the group? Who's out of the group? How do you get to be in the group? We're even told that the pathway is so narrow that only a few will make it. How about government? Government is another social institution that plays a vital role in society. It's responsible for maintaining order, protecting citizens from harm, and providing for the common good. I bet government wrote that. Economy, another social system. And there's some references of this document. Again, I don't back simply psychology. I don't not back it. I don't know much about it. I just wanted something to give an idea of social institutions in society. But what we're looking at here is really the structures that we live among, the systems of the military-industrial complex. Education system, government as a system, transportation as a system. Every system known to man is getting challenged right now. And rightfully so. We're in 2025 just around the corner from 2026. Don't you think it's kind of odd that the majority of the individuals like yourself are earning an income at a set amount, set range, and it doesn't vary that much from person to person? There's been a lot of anomalies over the last decade, and specifically over the last 4 years, of plucking people out of one community and putting them down into another community and paying them 7.5, 12 times, 100 times more than other people. It's a massive disparity. And along with that, we've seen mass amount of crime like we've never seen before. They used to call it white collar crime. Maybe they still do. But the idea is there's been so much of just stealing and taking that which is not theirs, and they know it's not theirs. And so as we look at this concept, all of these systems need to be challenged, because again, when you step out your front door in 2025, don't you expect a Jetsons mobile to pull up? Why are we still using cars with wheels on a road? Does that even make sense? It makes no sense to me. This whole idea of autonomous vehicles, they're only one step away from what other organizations like Joby are doing. Autonomous flight capsules. Did you know that during 2018 in San Francisco, LA, and New York, and I'm sure in other countries as well, I just wasn't part of that information, they were moving into people around via autonomous helicopter systems. It was like the Uber, but the Uber of the skies. Why in 2025, 2026 are we not seeing that everywhere? Why am I talking to you on a variety of tools that has taken weeks to reset up? It should just be a one button. And I know many of you will say, well, yeah, I just hold up my iPhone and start recording. But then you don't have the tools of going screen share and showing references. And in order to pull it together, it seems to be much more challenging than it needs to be. Why aren't all of our all of our homes specifically cleaned and organized every single day, as we've seen in the movies? Why do airplanes still look the same? And yet we can see TR-3Bs. We can see major flying ships. We can see all these alternatives, and yet the masses are still dealing with TSA at the airport, which apparently they've now decided that you can go through TSA and still meet somebody at the gate. Now, all of a sudden, that's okay. But for the last few decades, that's not okay. And why is it that for the last decade, I've had to put all my groceries in plastic bags? Because of the environment. And yet, in 7 days, you can't put stuff in a plastic bag anymore. It has to be a paper bag. Well, which is it? Nobody thought that plastic bag was good for the environment, but that's what the government did, and they charged us for it. Grocery bags were always free before. Now we had to pay into this scam. And yes, the option is to bring your own canvas bag. But the government didn't push that, did they? So let's continue on to the next one here. So now we've talked about systems. And we've talked a little bit about discernment, to really trust your own wisdom. Now, they've studied different societies on who is happiest. Americans are not happiest. And as we talk about it, Americans are not the most educated. We're about the bottom of the list. We can go through all the main lists of cursors, and Americans are being used. We know it, and we're suffering because of it. So what if instead of saying, well, let's back up. Remember that day that you went to the bank and there was a sign on the door that said you could not enter the bank unless you had a mask over your face? How ridiculous is that? How about using discernment? Who wants to go into a bank, as we saw, with a hat on, glasses, and a mask on? You don't do that. You show your appearance so that people feel comfortable with you, so that people can hear what you're saying. They can see your mouth and read your lips. You don't go in trying to hide and think people are going to trust you. And yet this is part of that shadowy culture we faced for some of us a few months, some of us many years. Santa Clara County was one of the worst abusers of this. But if we would have gone back with discernment, that would have never, ever, ever happened. My stance was, no, I'm not going in your bank with a mask on, and I'm going to show other people that I'm not, because this is ridiculous. So security was sent out to remove me. Okay, that's fine. I'll go home and I'm not banking with you. Shopping, you can't come in today unless you have a mask on. Okay, I'm not giving you my business. I'm going to stand up and let other people know that we're not playing this game. And when somebody comes back to me and says that you have to put on a mask, and I say, oh, are we still playing this game? I still turn and walk away. Discernment. What is your truth and your guidance to yourself? Which, as we know, there's only one truth. All this other is manipulation. But what is the guiding factor that you have? Your belief, your values, and your integrity. And are they yours? Do we need to relook at that structure of who you truly are? This is so important as you build a business, to have that level of integrity woven throughout the business. And the one place we've seen this more than anything is TPUSA. Correct? An individual wanted to start this direction. He wanted to share his values. He wanted to bring the country together. He wanted to be realistic with that path. And he wanted to change the way the government is run to be fair and have a strong government, that of which he saw the United States of America on this planet. And it got hijacked. People didn't ask enough questions. People's beliefs shifted based on what we've seen as mass greed. Yes, greed pays. Being a criminal pays a lot more than those who are the meek on the earth. There's an unlimited amount of cash flow and wealth. And you know that because who can print and lie and cheat and steal? The criminals, and they reward themselves for that. Discernment is key as we move forward here. So the next thing I want to look at is this whole mess that we had of DEI. In a search in Yahoo, this is what came up for their AI summary. And I should know this. I didn't bother looking up who they're pulling in from for the AI. But it says, to understand the origins of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, consider the following points. This is what they're telling us. DEI concepts emerged from the civil rights movements of the 60s and 70s. Okay? So if we've got 10 people involved in a civil rights movement, there can be 10 different concepts that emerge from that. And quite honestly, back then people still followed shiny objects. So there could have been 20 or 30 concepts that came out of it. But let's just call 10 people 10 different directions. Does it mean that all 10 were right or correct? No, but it did mean enough that not all people were being treated equally. And we needed to move that direction in the United States. And the United States of America has only ever had one civil war, one. And it was to make sure that people were treated equally. Unfortunately, that mindset or that generational switch took a little bit of time. But then the term diversity gained prominence in corporate settings in the 1980s. Now, why diversity? Well, we were bringing a lot of people in into our different neighborhoods and cultures and country. There was a process they primarily went through, but we were trying to make a higher populace country and telling people that the way to do this is to befriend your neighbor, trust everybody. This is the time when I got all my core friends for life, right there in the mid 80s. And only one of which was from this country. All the others, through my education system in elementary school and middle school, were brought in from other countries. And yet, some people would say something of maybe an older generation, but realistically, most of us in the classroom were told, be nice to everybody. Don't make fun of somebody who's different. Because if you blend kids together, you can manipulate them, tell them what to do, and accept everybody. Now, overall, I don't think that's a bad thing, but for the reasons that it was done and the outcome of what we've seen, it literally became an I versus you. As I one day was on campus in high school, I remember just holding my books. It was after school, so there weren't very many people around. And I started to walk towards the end of campus and then go home. And 3 kids that had been bused into that school district didn't want to be there, were angry that they had to be there and they had to wait for the bus, decided to take it out on me. And this is unfortunately what we see. One group of people is told to be the host and be kind and caring, and the group of people that are thrown into it often attack. It wasn't their idea either. And it's pitting people against one another. Also in the 80s, we saw an immense amount of money in this country. And we saw people deciding they would pay other people in order to do things for them. And so they needed other people that were diverse from them in order to do these things. Equity became recognized in the 1990s, focusing on fairness and justice. But what does equity really mean? This is really the turning point where we started to find out about reverse racism. The certain skin color is really bad, and you shouldn't hire them, and they shouldn't take the place of other people. And you know what? You shouldn't actually offer them education opportunities, because that takes away from other people. There was a huge turn in the 90s, and we saw a lot of layoffs in the 90s. We saw a lot of transition, and it's been really magnified as we move forward. But in the beginning, these were just systems being put in place. Inclusion became a key focus in the early 2000s, emphasizing the importance of belonging. When was the first time you remember being told that you could not say Merry Christmas to somebody, that was rude? How is wishing goodness and kindness based on your belief structure to somebody else rude? And then it got almost criminalized. The diversity, equity, and inclusiveness was everything but that. It specifically carved out a group of people and excluded them, made them feel bad, and taught others to hate them. That is not assimilation. That's not a melting pot. That's creating a civil war. Various organizations and scholars have contributed to the DEI frameworks over the years, and DEI initiatives have evolved to address systematic inequalities and promote workplace culture. Now, workplace culture is really the thread that we're going to keep pulling on moving forward, and we're going to talk about this quite a bit, because as you're building your own business, the color of somebody's skin should have no impact on that decision. As far as I'm concerned, you might have another belief. But you know what is going to be important for you as a business person? whether or not the person has education in what you need them to do, whether they have education experience, whether they have an aptitude, can they take the education experience that they have and launch forward to really propel your business forward? And do they have a desire to do the job? All four of these things we saw over the last 4 years as 1,900 H-1B visas were pulled into it as an example. And they did not have the proper education, not all of them, but happened to be those under the teams I was working with, didn't have the experience, were absolutely upset, and many crying of the females, because they thought they won the lottery to come over here and do this job based on the job description and the interview process. And it wasn't at all what they were asked to do. And now they knew that in order to stay here and validate their visa, they'd have to continue doing that work. And they were afraid they were going to fail because they had some level of integrity. They didn't want to lie. They wanted to succeed. And they wanted to succeed so much that once they got here, many of them enrolled in additional education, started applying for other jobs, just continued to embed in the society until one day they turned around and told my son's teacher that unless you provide vegan food, you cannot serve one meal to any other child in this class. What? Where'd this come from? I remember growing up, I had, maybe you would bring cupcakes to school for your class for your birthday. And one child may be allergic to peanuts. Unfortunately, we deal with that. And so that child was just told that on this day, we're going to have this, the mother would send something else for that child. It wasn't your responsibility to do a survey of the entire class, figure out what they would eat and what they would need, and provide a la carte to each individual student. Now, that would be very nice and kind, but that wasn't the expectation. And so now blocking everybody for one who is outside of the current culture really became demanding. And as I stated, as I went on Zoom interviews, one individual came on the Zoom and said, "Oh, you're a woman," and ended the interview. Well, with my name, it's not very difficult to know that I'm a female. But somehow that was a shock to that individual, who I had a hard time understanding that sentence, but it was quite clear. And HR told me, well, that's their culture. Well, if we look here, DEI initiatives have evolved to address systematic inequalities and promote workplace culture. Is that what culture means? Does culture mean that if I got hired, then I only hire other people that have my same religious belief, my same law structure from my culture that I imported in here? Or does culture mean the ability of a group of individuals to work together on a common goal to promote the business? These terms have been twisted and taken away in a manner that they have absorbed us. And so where do we go from here? DEI was another societal experiment. So many people bought into it. So many people stepped aside. And in the meantime, many people were derailed. When I went to the university, I was so excited to be in an area where I could truly learn above that which I was provided in high school, that I could choose any subject I wanted and talk to experts. And yet after just a few years, I was told that I had to leave. And the reason I had to leave was I had taken so many classes that I now had enough for a degree, but they wanted to push international students. So there wouldn't be room for me anymore. Well, I had asked for specific programs to be a part of, and I was told there was no room. And now all of a sudden there was plenty of room open for international students. I was smart enough. I had proved myself. I've earned the right to be there. I was not on scholarship. I was paying my way. Why didn't I have a right to that same education? And then as I went and looked for jobs, those jobs were available to people other than me. The myth of reverse racism, here it's very slanted, saying that it can't happen. But if you're choosing a group of people or not choosing a group of people based on their color of the skin, we got a problem. So what I want to do now is we're talking about I and you. Again, I is the person in your chair and you is somebody else outside of your chair. Understanding trends is really important. And this is one area that I've always had an extreme weakness. Some people are great at this. They can do a Trivial Pursuit, although I don't know anybody who knows that now, but they could get all of them. And yet I normally can't answer any of those questions. I'm very much in my own world. My head is down. I want to be part of society for society purposes, but I'm not into watching the most important. As I said yesterday, FOMO is not something I deal with. And so I don't know a lot of these trends. So today I pulled up, this would be the last 24 hours. I'm going to refresh it here to see if some of these names changes or not. A little bit. So in the last 24 hours on Google, these are the main trends. So as you're building a business and you want to reach out, this is what's really trending in Google searches. Here we've got Call of Duty creator, Linklater movies, Adam the Woo Pal. I don't even know what any of these are. Warriors and Magic. It seemed kind of odd, doesn't it? That these are the top. Here we go. Pro Bowl 2026. Yesterday, when I refreshed this, every single one was a football team. And here we've got Grizzlies and Thunders. Let's go down a little bit more. So it's interesting that this is out here, but is any of this something that you talk about? Maybe wondering if Walmart is open on Christmas Eve. This is a big search. Okay. How about Christmas Eve? Avengers. Look, this is what's trending. What if we look back 7 days? Still doesn't mean much to me. Maybe some of these. Here we got Nicki Minaj. Don't you think it's interesting with Nicki Minaj at Turning Point? And here we go. Completely out of place. So as you scan through, this is a key tool that you want to use. Also, TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, all of these organizations have their own summary. Now, most of us know libs of TikTok, bringing it over into YouTube so that we can watch it in an easy format. There's, I'm blanking on the other gentleman's name, who strings together concepts each day and releases them from clips from TikTok and brings them over to YouTube. But what you got to do is understand the direction. So it's, if you were investing in the stock market, it would be the same situation. You want to make sure, is the stock market generally trending up or is it generally trending down? And based on that general trend, you could know money in, money out. Now, generally, the trend of the stock market is up if you're looking at 10, 20, 30 years. But if you're looking at 24-hour cycles or 7 hours, you got to know which direction things are trending. What is important to people? So as you're starting your business, it's really key to understand the I, who you are in your beliefs, and the you, who you will be selling to. Now, as we've seen, the last 4 years or so, IPOs have been on hold. Venture capitalists weren't able to reach a liquidation factor in order to reinvest in new businesses. So all that money is now starting to queue up for IPOs, cash out. And by the spring of 2026, we're going to start seeing mass investments again. So if you're looking at a small business pathway, it's important to get out there and grab your market share in a firm stance. If you're looking for venture capital money as a startup, Your opportunity to grab big is coming. But you have to understand that going public doesn't necessarily mean that the company's profitable. In fact, Uber was one of the examples of a company who went IPO, and it wasn't about profit. They were losing money. But what they did, they had eyeballs, they had users, and that traction of what's trending and people following it and people testing the market with them is worth a lot of money, because you can manipulate those users. You can push them down the direction that you want them to go in a way to continue to be involved and be users. So it was more about eyeballs rather than money. So we had Uber, Pinterest, Lyft, and Peloton were all household name companies that have great success in the public market. Their IPO valuations, according to unicorns, see if I can show you this. Their IPO valuations accorded them unicorn status, and yet none of these companies were close to being profitable at the time of their IPO. Your relationship to money is going to be challenged here. Small business is usually tied to your income, your family, your home. So when a small business or a small restaurant, family-owned restaurant is closed, it's often generations of wealth that is being drained. A small business is different than other people's money of a startup. So as we look at I and you, where is your money invested? If it's in the stock market, it's running back through private equity companies and venture capitalists into these types of companies. Are you investing in yourself and your own brand? Or are you investing in somebody else that has a high chance of failure? Sky-high valuations, despite unprofitability, can seem counterintuitive, but these lofty valuations are still consistent with normal financial principles. This is IPO Hub, and this was 2021 with an update 2.5 years after that. So this is interesting to get a mindset. So let's bring this back to the conversation of building a business. We're really understanding who I am, meaning you in your chair, and who you is, the person over there. In these concepts today, we talked a lot about you as the individual who is manipulating you or controlling you, or part of your community, part of a system maybe. But here we're going to start changing that conversation to you is understanding your ideal customer. This is where a lot of startups fail. You can only serve one master. You can't be the marketplace in the middle and make both the consumer and the seller absolutely happy upon start. You've got to serve one side or the other. You can't go out in the world and say that my service is going to help everybody on this planet. It might, but you have to understand down to a granular level, who is it you're selling to? Master that, and then you can expand from there. Because if you try to sell everybody something, you're going to fail. But if you try to sell somebody something, you have a direct target. You've got analytics, you've got leverage, and you can move and start growing at scale as soon as you master that process. So here in this YouTube channel, Small Business Success Hub, they say understanding your ideal customer. Deeply understanding your customers is a foundation for business growth and connection. A customer avatar is detailed, semi-fictional profile of your client, your perfect client. It moves past simple demographics to reveal behaviors, motivations, and goals. I'm going to come back here for a moment. Let me see if it'll. This is really ideal. When we first started this concept, the idea of a customer avatar was, I don't know, maybe somebody like one of the characters in SimCity, right? How are you gonna, what is that person gonna look like? What color hair are they gonna have? What color skin color? What kind of clothing they gonna wear? What brand shoes do they wear? Where do they go buy their shoes? How do they spend their money? How do they spend their time? What hobbies do they have? How would you meet them? If they're at a mall, is it foot traffic? How do you get their attention? A moving board, flashing lights? What in the store would need to entice them to step on in? If they're online, how do you get their attention? Do you need social media platforms such as TikTok? Or maybe it's YouTube. Maybe it's Instagram. Where do people spend their time? When they're on that, what is it they need to see? Moving numbers, moving figures, color, no color? What does your particular individual that you're selling to desire? What about their family structure? Do they buy only for themselves? Do they buy for others? What about their education? What is their highest education level? What did they study? What is actually interesting to them is how you're going to be able to understand what is their problem or their need, and what solution are you going to provide to them. This is all that business is, and that's all that business has ever been, right? The ability to identify what somebody needs and to give it to them. And depending on what there is, there's different prices and costs associated with it. That's all there is. And so I tell you, sell something with integrity and the beliefs of where you're at. But the difference between you in your home today, so the I in your chair, and creating the life you want, the dream you want, is sell something. Brand yourself so that from business to business that you might need in order to get money or education or whatever that is, experience, that you are selling something, that people know you for you. They know your integrity. They know your values. They know the quality of your product or service, but they come to you as an individual for that solution. So as we wrap up today, there's just one place I'd like to go. You've got to understand that you are amazing. We don't need to wait for permission for somebody to tell us, yes, you can do this. No, you have the permission to do it. And especially if it's in alignment with your values, why can't you share what's important to you with those around you? Let people know about it. So for instance, we knew that we wanted to switch phone plans this year. We've been with our phone company for, I didn't look it up exactly, 15 to 20 years. Great, no problems, easy to deal with. But it's always good to look for solutions. And we've been looking for a few years and just didn't make the switch. This year, we had a particular phone company do an outreach for Black Friday only that we paid for 6 weeks of service of the other company to get a whole year of service, 365 days of service, 52 weeks of service, the other company. That's a big price difference. So we figured that after 6 weeks, if we don't like it, we can just go to another company. And by the way, they give you free phones normally when you go to new companies. So it's a win-win. But I posted and shared to everybody that this deal is going on. Watch it if you want to move, and you can make a referral money if you give a referral link to individuals for making the switch. It's phenomenal. I guarantee they'll probably do the same thing last year. But what got me wasn't just the switch of that money. Every step of the way, their customer service nailed it. I had on Black Friday, when people are going back and forth and looking for answers and not knowing how to get the tool, they were right there in the chat, walking me through each step of the way. I had an additional question. They quickly transferred me to phone support. Then they followed up with an email, and none of this was wasted or off cue. Like if you deal with QuickBooks, they will waste your time for 45 minutes before they finally decide they might get it to somebody who could solve it. But they'll blame you first for it being a customer or user error is the term they use. There was none of that with this company. It was, here's what we see, A, B, and C. This is the transfer process. It looks like the port is being moved. Your new company has been notified. Sorry, your old company has been notified, and we expect in about 4 to 5 minutes, you will have access to the new, all in one email, not back and forth. I didn't ask any of those questions. It was very proactive, like we used to see around June with ChatGPT. It does A, B, and C, and then gives you suggestions. Would you like me to do X, Y, and Z? This company nailed it. So I want you, as you're building your own company and running forward in 2026, to know that you got this. You are amazing. You are the best. If not you, somebody else is going to do it. And quite honestly, they don't care. They're taking that VC money. They're scaling as fast as they can. They're looking for a big payday. And these paydays now are millions, billions, and trillions of dollars. It turns into greed very, very quickly. Don't you think your neighbor, people in your community, people in your country, wherever that country might be, might want to buy from somebody who has a belief system similar to theirs, who has integrity, and somebody who's gone through what they've gone through? You know, there's a saying, how do you know if somebody's a lawyer? Well, it's the same saying. How do you know if somebody's a politician? Their lips are moving. So what we want to do as we're structuring to get you ready for 2026, again, these last few weeks of December are studying the person in your chair, you, the person over there that you're going to be selling to, that avatar, that individual, that real person. Cutting through the yous that get in your way and put up roadblocks, cutting discernment, shoving them aside, focusing on those you're going to help identify the need they have and the solution to that need. So I send you off today. I wish you luck as you kind of brainstorm these ideas. So we've talked about I and you. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about we, the coming together. And the day after that, we're going to talk about they, those people over there. As we move through this process, you're seeing how these core ideas are going to lay the absolute foundation that you need in order to start that foundational business that'll change your family for generations. And why is this important? Because I was talking to a CEO yesterday after the recording, and the number one reason that businesses fail, and I mentioned this in the recording, isn't that it's not that there's runs out of money or there's no employees. The number one, especially with AI now, you can be a solopreneur. The number one reason businesses fail is because the founder walks away. As long as you don't walk away, bit by bit, you're going to build a phenomenal structure. Don't sell your time to an employer. Don't sell your time to somebody else. Take your time, take a few steps back in life if you need to, and build something that is lasting for you. And in order to make that happen, you've got to let other people know, and marketing is the key. Go ahead and grab a digital marketing class. Watch some Google Trends. Understand what is important to the specific individual that you're looking to sell to. Not as selling ice to an Eskimo who already has plenty of forms of ice, but to selling somebody like yourself that can really benefit from the idea or the concept or the product or service that you've put together. This is a wonderful world we live in. We can look outside, and 2026 may not have jets and vehicles flying all over. But you know what? We have beautiful trees. We have wonderful birds and bees. We've got beautiful flowers we can smell. There's a lot of natural beauty in this world that we can all embrace and support and pull into our day as what is truly real, and share that vision with those around us. And that's how we get back to peace on earth. Okay, have a wonderful day. We'll be back here tomorrow, moving from I to you to a we conversation. Let's do this. We're ready for 2026.